Wow. I've been making these kinds of videos for a whole year. Over a year, actually. And you know what? I never even thought I'd make it that far. You guys have made it possible. So welcome to my special episode. Roll the intro. Caddicarus! 1 year. I've been doing this for 1 whole year. Where has all the time gone? But you know what? I figured that this commemoration of 365 days plus of this show, I am a bit late, I'm sorry, and all the good things that have happened and all the ugly, dirty, skanky bits in between, that needs to be recognised, doesn't it? It deserves a special video. A video or two that answers a question that I probably get asked the most out of any of them. Favourite PS1 games of all time. Because after all, it's the console I grew up with. It formed and manifested everything that I know today about gaming and how I perceive everything. And I never played much Nintendo consoles as a child, maybe apart from the Game Boy Advance, but still apart from that, nothing, no Nintendo 64s or anything, but PS1, all the time. It was legendary, revolutionary, and any way you look at it, a fantastic video game system. It's my favourite system of all time, and it had some fucking epic games to accommodate it. And it still manages to root up and evoke all sorts of emotions from me. Joy, fear, fun, comfort, tension, adrenaline, relaxation, and love, even today. So this topic is exploring a very deep, personal, and closely emotional list actually, now that I think about it. So consider this list probably my most heartfelt. And because it's such a big one, I've decided to give it all to you in 2 parts. A top 20. Because believe me, top 10 really couldn't cut it. And when scripting this, my original list ended up on about 47 or something, so please respect how difficult this list was, okay? These aren't going to be the theoretical best, and they're not going to be the most worldly cherished, overall, everybody voting best PS1 games of all time. This is just my personal favourites. Anyway, lots to do and little time to do it, so let's get this epic ball rolling. Kicking off at number 20 is a slightly obscure one. A movie licensed game, but ridiculous. Well, no, it isn't. And that is because Toy Story 2 Buzz Lightyear to the Rescue is actually a very well made game. And just from reading the title, your mind expects so much from the source material, the movie it's based on, and just the whole idea of playing a video game as Buzz Lightyear. And you know what? It delivers on all corners. It actually feels like you stepped into the movie on your death-defying quest to find Woody. The level design is impeccably ingenious, taking full advantage of the fact that you are a toy in the real world. And the area interactivity with everyday objects and exploration above the ground is simply bliss. The controls are tight and Buzz's abilities are utterly awesome. I mean, who doesn't want to play as Buzz fucking Lightyear? Throw in some brilliantly varied minigames, great platforming, great bosses, and Tim Allen himself. Mix it all together and you get this game. And as I'm sure you already know, I use the soundtrack for this game in nearly every one of my videos. Why? Because it fucking rules. Also, it's the first video game I ever completed 100%. There is my childhood. At number 19 is a rather untalked about game because I don't fucking know. And it goes by the name of Nightmare Creatures. This isn't the best game in the world by any means, but it's something that will always remain a close part to my childhood and my personal interests. And I always felt that this was horrifically underrated either way. You take some nifty and strategic hack, slash and block combat, one of the darkest possible settings in a desolated, disease-ridden 19th century London, one of the nastiest looking and notorious villains I've ever seen with an even more evil name, Adam Crowley, and a pretty well constructed parallel universe around London history and the occult. This game combines it all and then surfaces and shines in all its ye old gothic horror. And I fucking love gothic horror. And I always found its combat system very charming. It's a bit clunky and stiff, but then when you get the nick of it, it's as satisfying as minge. And what it does well, as opposed to some games nowadays, is that it makes every single enemy, big or small, a threat. And that's just swell. And despite this not being the scariest game ever made, because it isn't. The game is draped in horror and thick atmosphere, and the music, enemies, locations, and you never feel safe at any point, even when you have the most badass items and weapons that do this. So to be honest, what more could you expect from a game called Nightmare Creatures? And as a kid, I gave this monstrosity over here my own personal name. Scarecrow in the Pants. Yes, a very weird child over here. At number 18 is a game for fucking pansies. How could I ever like this prancy, dancey, cutesy, glittery, sparkly piece of merry fucking pumping shit? And that's because Klonoa, daughter Phantomile, is actually very damn good. Obviously. It wouldn't be over Nightmare Creatures if it wasn't. I shan't go into too much detail about it as I actually did a review on it. Yeah. Go see. But to sum it up briefly, do not let the kiddie exterior deceive you. What you have here is a beautiful game with simple controls against challenging 2.5D platforming and puzzles, all backed up by a great soundtrack and a genuinely hard-hitting story in places. If you haven't played this, then you're simply missing out. And then at number 17, I had to let my inner Bruce Willis unleash onto the barons of mankind. And even though Mr. Willis makes no appearance in this game, Die Hard Trilogy is one of the most simplistically badass games I've ever played. And despite the simplicity, it offers you a lot, like the name suggests. In fact, it offers 3 full games on one PlayStation disc. And not only are they all different game genres entirely, but every single one is pick up and playable, easy to understand, and immensely destructive and deadly fun. It does exactly what it says on the tin. Maybe minus the initial difficulty and utter confusion with Die Hard with a Vengeance, but regardless. In Die Hard, you kill every terrorist on every floor of the Nakatomi Plaza in third person. In Die Harder, you can either use the controller or whack out your PS light gun for an on-rails first-person shooter through the very atmospheric airport. And in With a Vengeance, you go all driver/GTA around New York City in an attempt to stop every single bomb in the streets by blowing the everlasting fuck out of them. Of course. So to sum up, you get 3 addicting, tricky, and immensely violent games in one complete disc. And I cannot describe the hours of fun that I've had with this beauty.
Ho ho ho! I've got a machine gun!
And now at numero 16, this obscure little gem. Vib Ribbon is a rhythm game from the same people behind Parappa the Rapper and Malami. This was a very tricky spot to fight against, purely because the ribbon clashed fiercely with the rapper and the lammy. But to be honest, as much as I love the rapper and the lammy, the ribbon is much more complex, original, and better made. Well, to be honest, only a teensy bit more original. I mean, a paper-thin rapping dog and a rocking cat is still original, but anyway. There's no story here, so fuck that! You're this weird rabbit thing made out of weird line things that runs along another line thing as it avoids other line thing indentation things. And how many buttons do you need to do this with? 4. And every button works in accordance to specific indentations in the string that Vibri runs across. Press the right button at the correct time along with the given song you play to help Vibri avoid the indentation. Simple, right? Wrong! Because you then get ones that merge together, meaning pressing both corresponding buttons that match with the new pattern. And yes, this can result into some fucking insane challenges! See? Simpler controls than Parappa and Malami, yet infinitely more challenging. And I'm not even joking, that's literal. Because this game never ends, due to the awesome feature of being able to play any music CD you want within the game. So all the patterns, speeds, and songs are completely up to you. And if you don't want to pick that, this game has a fucking brilliant J-pop soundtrack rivaling Katamari Damacy, despite only having 6 tracks available on the disc. But when you're picking your own tunes, you'd assume that something fast and heavy or overly jumpy and poppy would actually guarantee difficulty. But you'd be wrong. The trickiest song I've ever found is Jake the Peg by Rolf Harris. Fucking seriously. Just watch.
Hey, so we just put the disc in and we're ready to go, and Vibri's running very... I don't think I'm ready for this. I'm very unsure about this. Oh, good start. Oh, okay. Okay, bad intro, but here comes the chorus anyway.
Take the big D with my extra leg.
That, and I have no words for this particular high score reader. And at number 15 was another difficult one. When it came to choosing between Tomb Raider games, as classic as they all are, especially 1, I have to just go with 2. Despite how revolutionary and huge 1 was at its time, this is, if you ask me, how a solid sequel should be done. It's bigger, better, more detailed, prettier, more adaptable and easier to control, more puzzling, more exploring around more environments for more collectibles, better combat, a more expansive arsenal, more gameplay mechanics and vehicle hijacking, a new saving anywhere feature, just everything works in this game. It's one of the greatest action-adventure games I think I could name, and as a successor to the great first game, it tremendously holds up even today. I mean, the leap in quality, if you ask me, is huge. And even though the games kept on adding more to the table as they progressed, I'll always love 2 the most. That, and I may be a little bit biased because this also cushions a very close subject to my heart and represents a landmark in my video gaming history, as this was also the first game I actually ever finished. I was 4 years old. Suck it. And lest we forget the hugely enlarged Lara's home training stages and rooms to explore, I can stop rambling though. You know why this series is great, and if you want to play my favourite one, this is indeed it. At number 14 is another dearly beloved one, Broken Sword 2. This happens to be one of my favourite point-and-click adventure games of all time, next to the brilliant... Well, anyway, best enjoyed with the PlayStation mouse, this game really just tickles me the right way. The voice acting isn't great, but the dialogue and writing is fantastic, with some sharp-edged wit, tons of cartoony charm, and genuinely funny moments in both the character interactions and the environmental feedback. Not to mention, it looks fantastic, possibly even against some of the MS-DOS point-and-clicks around the same period. Just look at the details. It's luscious. And everything that you need and expect from a point-and-click adventure is present. A likable protagonist, a great plot with twists and turns, genuine head-scratching puzzles, and it keeps you hooked in every single scene. I love it. And I love lines like this.
I glanced over the books, vaguely hoping to find a copy of How to Deal with Poisonous Spiders While Tied to a Chair.
At number 13, this is Whip 3 Out. Or Wipeout 3, I suppose. I love all the Wipeouts. Anti-gravity futuristic weapon racing, if you ask me, has never been beaten than with Wipeout. I mean, the Star Wars pod racers are great as well, but you can't really do this in them. I actually grew up playing Wipeout 2097, so this was another tricky battle to the death. However, where I prefer the soundtrack to 2097 and the leap in quality from the first, I finally chose Wipeout 3 for these reasons. It looks better, the weapons are more satisfying, and it's local multiplayer. The first one and even the second one, as great as that one was, both had the stupid console linking bollocks that no one fucking used. So I picked Wipeout 3. It's fast, adrenaline-packed, tons of fun, and really tests your racing skills in flying ships of fanciness. It's awesome. Go get it. Number 12 is a personal classic for me, and a possible contender for best Looney Tunes licensed video game ever. Bugs Bunny Lost in Time does everything right in the same regard that Toy Story 2 did. You know, being respectful and properly true to its source material. It actually feels like you're controlling a Looney Tunes cartoon, and it rocks! Hell, even some of the stories from the legendary shorts themselves are used as levels, and the cutscenes can sometimes directly borrow from them with the dialogue and the gags. Now, that is cool. Nostalgia. Brr. Except, where Toy Story 2 can be beaten fully in a day or two, this game is much bigger, and it plays entirely differently. Instead of heading down a stage advancing system in order to progress the story, this follows a more open-ended route. You can't complete all the levels in different time periods in one go. You need to unlock them and then play them. Does it feel a little bit backtracky? Not at all. And why is that? Because in most cases, the levels that you unlock, despite being in the same time period that you were before, offer completely new areas to explore, and some even play completely different to spice up the gameplay. And what I love most about this is Bugs himself. They managed to create a realistic aura about him. He controls as you would expect, just like an anthropomorphic rabbit. His movements, jumping, lifting, sneaking, kicking, it all feels just right. You actually feel the weight of Bugs shifting as you navigate the greatly designed and devilishly cartoony areas, solve the never too hard yet still kind of fun puzzles, use the many magic spells, fight familiar faces in fun boss battles, and travel through fucking time. Not to mention, the spiritual sequel, Bugs and Taz Time Busters, is also a blast, and that even has a co-op story with Taz. However, for the sake of everything that I just said, Lost in Time, in my opinion, is the superior game, and I played it for yonks as a kid. Aw, baby me. Tekken Bloody 2. Number 11 has to go to Tekken Bloody 2. Why not Tekken 3? True, Tekken 3 mastered the Tekken formula and nailed the minigames, characters, content, and everything, but Tekken 2 is a much rawer and labouring, grunt-heavy experience. Not being offensive, of course, and not to say that that detracts from the quality, not at all, because if anything, according to my childhood heart, it makes it stand the test of time even more so than any of the other games. This game meant so much to me as a kid, I couldn't even possibly tell you. Everything about it is just fucking masterful. The highly time-tuned button per limb combat, the brilliantly refined combos, the backdrops, the excellent and memorable soundtrack, the moon jumping, the amount of characters to select and their different fighting styles, the epic announcer.
Round 1. Fight!
I mean, there is so much badass just seeping from every crack of this game. So much that there isn't a single English word on the back of the PAL box. It doesn't need to tell you or provide you false perceptions on how good it is. It knows exactly what it is. It just exists. It doesn't fuck around and then it wallops you in the teeth. That, and I've never actually experienced quite the thrill of unlocking characters as I have with this game. It truly feels gratifying for your hard work, and even though the fad of early FMV cutscenes aren't really worth the effort by finishing arcade mode, like a cigarette, there's an obscure lure that keeps you coming back to unlock these cutscenes. There's something warm, tingly, magical, and really rewarding about seeing them after a long haul against Kazuya and Devil. I really can't explain it. It's almost like it transports you to the arcade and gives you the full, blood-rushing, tense experience, but in the living room. And I've always appreciated the skill factor needed to play Tekken in general. It's just so hideously satisfying and rewarding to learn the combos and get the timings and the blockings and everything right. You feel like a fucking boss! And, oh god, the multiplayer. Days with my friends have been wasted solely on this game. Not only that, but this game has also been classed as my #1 argument settler. Got a problem? Disagreeing over something? Stubborn people that think they're right about everything when you know you're right and you need some way to settle it? Best friend slept with your wife? Then Tekken to it, and you'll finally see who is the overlord.
And there you have it, my top 20 to 11 PS1 games of all time. So stick around for part 2 of this countdown and see exactly where this lands us. I might still surprise you here and there. But until then guys, if it's your birthday or watching this video, then happy freaking birthday to you, and please remember to stay beautiful. Take care everybody. What?